Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez back again. This is going to be kind of a no holds barred talk about the Pro 100 from Canon, probably the world's most popular printer for obvious reasons. Back early in the existence of this unit, it was given away for free if you just bought a camera from Canon. And DSLR got you a free Pro 100, which by itself, it was about a $500 printer. A lot of people didn't use it, didn't want to deal with printing, so then they sold them locally to local buyers for $100, $115. And so everyone could have a printer that was at that time very, very good. The problem was ink. A set of inks cost you more than you paid that guy at the local 7-Eleven parking lot for that printer. $120 retail for a full set of 8 cartridges. So there are many ways to circumvent that high cost. We need some good inks, okay? And companies here in the US, there's a couple of them that make fairly good ink. And in Europe, again, the same thing, but they just don't come close to OEM. And OEM inks had a problem. They were not perfect. The perfection that we expect from OEM. They could not replicate reds on your images. It would turn out a bit orangey. They could not replicate some deep cyans and several other areas of that spectrum. So Precisioncolors spent a whole year nearly coming up with a custom blend, which then he had to contract to a private lab to produce for him. So when I got a hold of those inks, they turned out to be better than OEM. They solved the deficiencies that the OEM inks had. Now the Pro 200 comes out and goes beyond that. Not only did they solve those deficiencies, but they surpassed. So PCSE Signature Edition inks for the Pro 100 basically produce better results than OEM for the same printer. Trust me. I've tested the living daylights out of those two ink sets and came to that conclusion. So what is your other option? Well, you can buy other inks off the shelf. I call it a generic ink set for the Pro 100 produced here in the USA. But again, it's just as good as maybe a little bit less than OEM. But it's good enough. I mean, it's very low cost. And the deal is, how are you going to then use this ink? Well, you have several refilling options for your CLI-42 cartridges. You either process them by removing the factory fill ball, drilling out the seed 5/32 of an inch so that it can then accept properly a plug. You will then use that chamber that now you opened up to add ink to it. You're going to add ink until about 20% from the top. In other words, 80% of that chamber is filled with ink and has had a chance to resaturate the sponge. You will need orange clips for the bottoms of your cartridges. You cannot really be using these original ones you broke off and more than likely tossed. So you need to buy those from a seller. Now, what I recommend for everyone that chooses to go that route is to just simply order a set of these cartridges from Rick Johnson. Rick Johnson has taken it upon himself to locate and find as many empties as he can find, and then he will go through the very labor intense process of modifying them and flushing them, because the idea is that you don't want to have any remnants of the original ink in those sponges. By that I mean this portion of the cartridge. So you remove that remnant by flushing and then properly drying them. So all you have to do is buy a resetter, reset that chip, add the ink after you put a clip on the bottom, of course, let it permeate the sponge, add whatever amount you have to add to bring it up to about 1/8 of an inch from the top. You don't want to go beyond that because then you may get ink inside the vent. The vent is a very curvy little, like a little tunnel. They call it a serpentine vent. And that allows air to enter that chamber as ink is being utilized out of the cartridge. Otherwise, you will develop a vacuum, and then all of a sudden you'll get a lock. Ink cannot flow any longer. And we don't want that, especially with a Canon thermal printhead that has a tendency to overheat if it is not being cooled down by what? Not antifreeze, ink. Ink is what acts as a coolant agent. All right, so that is one option. You can go ahead and get a couple of those sets, which is what I recommend you do. And what do? You have a set already reset and full. And then every time one of your current installed cartridges goes low, and by that I mean that it is barely above that warning, there's a little prism right here that triggers the low warning. So you want to catch it either right at that moment or just prior to that. And then all you have to do is then put it away. And I suggest you get yourself, if you're going to do this from now on, get yourself a holder from RUDY HALIMUN and load your cartridges. I could then, after I reset them, I pop them here and I can remove a plug one at a time and top them off. That way they are sitting, waiting to be used, ready to go. So when one cartridge goes low, by the way, when you buy that holder, you get two of them. So when one cartridge goes low or almost low, remove all 8, replace them with full and reset cartridges. Then put the clips on those that you removed, put them on that holder, and at your leisure, reset them and carefully refill them. Make sure you got the right color ink in the right cartridge, of course. Otherwise, you will have to reflush that cartridge. There's no other option. So that is the primary option that we utilize at this moment. Everyone who has a Pro 100 basically uses. There is another option. It's vacuum filling. For that, you need special gadget that you can also get from RUDY HALIMUN that allows you to refill those cartridges via vacuum. Basically, the way the factory did it. It's a lot more intense as far as the process, but once you master it, it basically provides you with what looks like a factory filled cartridge. These two right here are not modified. They were vacuum filled and they work as the originals did as well. But I have decided, after I have been talking against this for years, that continuous ink systems don't work on Canon printers. And I came up with all of these reasons why they made sense. A lot of people agreed with me. And I decided, well, I'm never going to go that route. And then finally, I just said, why not? You know what? My printer is over 9 years old now. I have 2 brand new ones in box, so I'm not too worried. Let me go ahead and order a sys from inkproducts.com. Now, the only part that I don't like is that it comes pre-filled. And a couple of people have had problems with tanks that are leaking outside the hose connection. And Ink Products, if you're listening to this, please check on that. I have people complain to me. They should complain to you, not me, about that they received their box and internally they saw ink. Okay? So when they also installed the system, they saw leaky ink. And so they thought, let me find out where this ink might be leaking from, and it was one of the little hoses, one of the little tubes. So anyway, they were able to fix it, but again, they shouldn't have to deal with something like that. That could be really scary. Now, if it came empty, then you can basically load your choice of ink, which of course, in my case, it will be ink from Precisioncolors.com, the signature edition inks, which to me have been proven to be superior to OEM. Now, that involves a loading process, which again, you may not want to tackle. You have to then prime the cartridges one by one. It can get messy, folks. It can really get messy. So you have to kind of, make that choice. Now, how bad off are those inks for the Pro 100 from Ink Products? Well, I assume that they come from the same company that produces dye inks in the United States for these families of printers. Okay, so it is an off-the-shelf ink set. It will work on the Pro 100. Now let me explain something to you. It is third-party ink. It is not OEM, original manufacturer's equipment. So the profiles that come loaded with your driver are not made with that ink set. Just like when I was using the earlier version from Precisioncolors, I had to make profiles. And that's why he also makes profiles and provides them for you for a variety of papers for free. It's a lot of work, believe me. And so, yes, you need to have custom profiles created. Don't scream and yell because those inks are giving me a slightly greenish result on my black and whites. Well, that's to be expected. It is not OEM and it is not custom blended. As far as I know, it is not. So you just need to make some profiles. You will neutralize that problem immediately by simply making a profile. So I had to make a profile because imagine this. You got a Pro 100 with dye inks. What do dye inks excel at? Printing on glossy paper. Now, what is the best Canon glossy paper? Platinum gloss. But I discovered A-Sub, A-Sub, which normally is a company that provides us users with papers meant for sublimation printing, meaning that you're going to print that image on that paper. You're going to then sandwich it with a substrate that has been coated with polyester, and you put it on a heat press and you press down, and the sublimation effect takes place, and you get an image on your plate of aluminum or a sheet of acrylic or whatever the case may be, or a t-shirt. So that's different, but they also make photographic papers. They make I think it's a semi-gloss and also a glossy. And so I decided, let me try a sheet of that glossy paper on the Pro 100. You can't see that, and I'm going to do a video where I'm going to actually close-up shoot the whole thing operating Pro 100 with the Ink Products Sys unit. And yes, the color was off a little bit. So I fire up my i1 Pro 2, printed just a simple 400 patch chart, scanned it, and printed my standard image. And there it is. Absolutely neutral. As far as I can see here, maybe not on video. You got a lot of stuff reflecting off of it. Let me enlarge this a second here to minimize that problem. That's what happens when you are shooting a video from your monitor. So yeah, this is actually neutral. And the thing that I look for is a neutral rendition of these lighter and lighter and lighter tones. They are not changing hue. They are remaining the same level of neutrality. The kids' faces, the skin tones look normal. That's very important. And of course, the rest of the images are just commonly known images that you can just look at and tell with your own eyeballs that that looks either correct or wrong. So I got now as far as I'm concerned, a very, very good rendition of that standard image. That means that when I look at my standard image on my monitor, I need to determine, wait a minute. So I printed this with Qimage. I let Qimage print this using the profile that I just created, and also automatically canceling color management in the driver, because it does that automatically now. You don't have to worry about double profiling. Had I not used Qimage, I may have double profile simply by letting the driver control color, maybe using Canon glossy profile, and also using my custom profile within or inside Qimage Ultimate. That would have been horrendous. That would have been a really bad result, and it would have been totally wrong. But when I told it to use this custom profile, it automatically turned off color management in the driver. Zero double profiling. It's no more an issue. So there you go. Anyway, so why did I switch over to Assist? Because even though the Pro 100 probably would not be, technically speaking, the best example of what printer to convert to a continuous ink system, I will touch on this a little bit later as well, because I can reset those chips at will. So I can just continue using these, using the system of replacing a whole set at a time when needed. Boom, I'm done. I generate one single purge cycle per 8 cartridges instead of one at a time if I use the current method of replacing a single cartridge every time. When you run a purge cycle, it affects all 8 channels. They all lose ink, and that ink goes into your internal pads. Which, why should I want to speed up the saturation of those internal pads? I can't replace them. That printer has to be taken to a service center and serviced, and it costs about $200. Why should I do that? So I want to extend the life of those pads by minimizing the purge cycle. So by exchanging a complete set at a time, you always end up with full cartridges on the indicator, in other words, full chips. And by the time one of them reaches low again, it might be quite a while. Instead of the other method, one at a time creates this kind of a domino effect where you get one that is high, one that is middle, one that is almost low, one that is almost about to really go low. And then when you replace that one, the other one will go low because you will run a purge cycle across the board. And again, now you have to replace that one. And who knows what will happen the next, immediately after that, you get another purge cycle. Yes, that happens. So we came up with this trick to minimize the number of purge cycles that you have to undergo and therefore decrease the amount of waste ink you generate. Now with a sys unit, okay, I can disable each chip. When any one of those chips eventually goes empty, because I'm running OEM chips on it, I can disable it, and eventually I will have all 8 chips disabled. Okay, that means that I no longer need to ever reset anything. Okay, the printer will continue printing. It's like the Pro-1000, the method that we are using in the Pro-1000. We have to now physically keep track of our ink. We have to now physically keep track of my XP 15,000 ink levels. I cannot just print blindly. I'm running chipless firmware. The same thing is no longer utilizing the chips for ink level indication. Okay, so I have to physically look at them. I have to physically weigh the Pro-1000 cartridges, but lucky me, I have sensor systems on my cartridges. That's another story. Anyway, so this gives you an idea why this might be actually something you might be interested in doing. Be aware that the inks are not going to match exactly OEM. You're going to need profiles. Oh, there's no profiles anymore. Of course not. You have to make them. Just like if you bought ink from eBay, you would end up having to have either someone make profiles for you, or me, or yourself. But you would have to profile those inks because they're going to output somewhat differently than OEM. It's simple as that. Now here's the kicker. Now, here's the top reason why I was thinking, oh man, the Pro-200 would be a perfect candidate for this, because you're going to get the unit with a set of cartridges. You're going to swap the chips from your CLI-65 cartridges onto those and proceed to print. And then when each chip goes empty, you disable it. That's it. Normally, a Pro-200, oh my gosh, you got to go through a lot of hoops to be able to refill with it. You have to buy a set of CLI-42s, because those original cartridges, 65s, are opaque. You cannot see that sponge, so you don't know what the condition of the cartridges are at any time. You can only guess. Sure, you can drill it, you can put a plug, you can refill, but how do you know what's happening inside? So you got to use one of these. All you got to do is swap the 65 chip onto the spot where the 42 chip would go, and you're good to go, and then disable it. But now you got to check pretty much constantly to see where your ink levels are and which cartridge do I remove. You no longer have that help on your driver any longer. You have no clue what your ink levels are when you're running that system. In other words, CLI-42s with CLI-65 chips on your Pro-200. You have to constantly, like every couple of weeks, remove some cartridges, check them, top them all off, and put them back in. Well, guess what you will run then? A purge cycle. Okay, so here is the problem with that. And so I would say, wait a minute, let me backtrack. So I would say a sys unit on a Pro 200, absolutely what you want, because now after you disable all the chips, you have a constant supply of ink, externally mounted. Okay, you don't have to ever look at your cartridges. You just look at your tanks externally and check them every month or so. Add ink if necessary. The problem is that third-party inks for the Pro 200 are a bit low in the scale of quality, output quality. Let me give you a bit of a wake-up call. Precisioncolors tried and they failed. They could not duplicate the current quality of Pro 200 inks in any way, shape, or form. And using Pro 100 inks on it will turn out to be kind of an output disaster. It really looks horrible. Something was changed. Something was changed in the chromatic quality of that set of 8 inks on the 200. Now, Precisioncolors realized that took place after several failures and decided, let me go ahead and at least get close, which they did, and they sell that ink now. But that's the only catch. The inks that you would get with a Pro 200 sys unit, you would have to absolutely run profiles for everything you print on. And don't think you're going to be using that printer for non-photographic type media. Okay, for stickers, for labels, unless you don't care about the output quality. But mechanically speaking, that unit works. Okay, and I am very happy with it after all of this. And remember, I told you this was going to be no holds bar. So that unit mechanically works perfectly so far. And I'm going to provide a video later on this week showing you. I'm going to print a huge print, and I'm going to open up the lid and take close-ups with my camera and show you how that unit operates, how smoothly it operates, how there is no lateral tension on the cartridges being applied because of the way that the host unit that holds the ink lines is designed to prevent that from happening. That's the thing that took me years to accept, that there was no way to control that flapping flat ribbon of ink. It would flap everywhere. Sometimes it would go up, sometimes it would go down and jam the print head, which scared you to death when that happened. So they came up with this design probably in 2017 and offered it. And I was a little bit, cold-footed about it until today. I decided, well, you know what? My printer just had its 9th birthday, and I'm going to go ahead and get it finally and test it out. So, again, like I said, you need to make a profile. Okay? I may create some profiles using the current ink set and then make them available on my Facebook group. It's going to be possibly only for Canon papers. Now, here's what happens. I have tested on other papers. Depending on the profile for that particular paper, I even use EPSON paper on it. It may give you a very good rendering. Okay, that's absolutely or close to being neutral, and again, not too bright, not too dark, correct intensity, and it looks great, and you may not have to profile. But for the majority of papers, anytime you switch to a third-party inks, I don't care from whom, you will have to profile. Precisioncolors made profiles for the Pro 100 PCSE inks. Did he have to? Probably not. But he did anyway, because he knows that a profile will tweak out that last bit of quality out of a printer, paper, and ink combination. So keep that in mind. So again, I'm not saying that this is for everybody. I still prefer this method. Okay? This requires a little bit of savvy, a little bit of installation, knowledge, yeah, it's not that difficult. You know, even this dummy can do it. But again, if you buy an empty one, then it requires filling and priming and all of that. And that can prove to be a bit messy if you are not in full control of how the process goes. Think very hard about removing that. Okay, once you get it set up, as long as nothing is happening mechanically, don't be removing those cartridges here and there, okay? Because they are going to leak on you, all right? It's a simple fact. Alrighty, I think that's it. Oh, wait a second. No, it's not it. I'm going to show you some prints real quick. Now, I had this image. I printed this, I believe it was live on my live stream. I had this image of a bit of caviar on some sushi rice. Again, I got a little plastic green leaves in the back, chopsticks in the background. Beautifully shot on a studio. And this is what I was interested in finding out. This is, by the way, Canon Pro Matte. Okay? Canon Pro Matte profile, by the way. So I'm very happy with this. This actually pretty much matches the screen. Right here, you're going to see the shadow of that chopstick. I was afraid that this area here was going to completely block up and just disappear, become nothing but a dark background such as this right here. But it did not happen. As you can see, you can actually discern the shadow between the shadow and the chopsticks and the background. So I'm very satisfied with that. You can see the difference in tonality. That's another one. Of here and here. This is cooler. This is warmer. And that's the way it is on my screen. So in this case, this turned out to be pretty much perfect. Now, I had calibrated my screen prior to any of this printing test to make sure that the screen was dead on neutral. Now, I decided to also use it on a very strange old paper that has a swellable surface coating, meaning it is sort of gelatin based, and so when ink lands on it, it swells that gelatin coating. The ink then gets absorbed into the coating. It does not like diffuse or anything. It actually stays contained pretty nicely. The little dots are there. But once that eventually dries and the moisture evaporates and that layer then settles down, it encapsulates the ink and it's protected against ozone. It lasts a huge amount of time. This is a computer generated shot from a real image of the forest. But again, I just wanted to print it, and this matches my monitoring. And again, this is on like some kind of weird paper. I have the box over there. I don't have it here with me. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, beautiful. This is Epson Enhanced Matte. And basically, I wasn't concerned about exact color matching. I was concerned about black density. And the little seeds on that little slice of kiwi, at least here with me, maybe not on video because this is being lit really intensely, came out really nice. It has a tinge of brownish tonality to it, which is there clearly. Okay, the chopsticks were orange. They're not red, they are orange. And that rendition came out very nicely indeed. Again, that's with the original inks from the sys unit. Wherever the source happens to be, I don't know. Somebody wanted to know, can I use the Pro 100 to print on canvas? So I had this weird kind of a graphic image. I don't even know what it is. It looks like a cross section of something, like a photo micrograph. And I printed it on the Pro 100. This is canvas. It's kind of a nameless canvas I got from eBay, and it's matte. And again, great blacks. Look at that. This is dye inks. So, you know, I've had people just malign those inks like they're the most horrible thing in the world. One person is even willing to give away her sys unit to someone. Anyone that picks it up can take it away. And I thought, okay, right, okay. What are you printing on? And then when she told me, I thought, what? Yeah, not really photo material. So anyway, this is canvas, photo canvas. And Again, whatever this thing is, was rendered beautifully. In Gettysburg, there's an area, a monument called the Peace Monument. And basically it's got an eternal flame. And off to the side of the big monument was this grove of trees with a cannon sitting, a piece of artillery sitting on the bottom, looking into a foggy valley behind it. This was done on the Pro-100 with those inks. So don't tell me that that printer cannot perform with those inks and that sys unit. One thing that gives it away, okay, if you have a mechanical problem with your sys unit, you look for artifacts. You're looking for banding. You're looking for other non-smooth lines. Anything that's not smooth, that doesn't look continuous tone like this certainly does. Look at this was in the fall. Look at those trees. And again, this is an early morning. It's foggy out. But there you go. It looks marvelous to me. This is a sub glossy. And it looks just like Canon Platinum Gloss. The same type of quality. It's got about the same weight to it, the same feel. Now I had a shot of a old bicycle against the wall of a barn. Look at that. Again, look at the top right here. Those blacks are intense. Look at the shadows under the bike. And this is on Canon, what was that? Pro Luster. Canon Pro Luster. And again, because you're not running just straight cartridges on the print head, you're running a sys unit which is connected to the print head assembly. If something is happening to cause any kind of problems with the smoothness of the travel of the print head, it's going to be reflected in this direction. There's nothing there. Okay? And I really scrutinized this image, this print, looking for faults. And I couldn't find any. I have other prints that have a very smooth sky with a very low level of gray tone in black and white. Yeah, there is a little bit of a cast, sure, but perfectly smooth sky. So what can I say? Did I luck out? Did Joe get the lucky unit? I don't think so. I don't think so. But again, be aware, regardless of whose inks you get, if you're in the UK, there are several sources out there. Those inks are very likely from the US lab, okay? Unless they come from Germany. And those inks, like from OCP, they have to be profiled. Absolutely. They absolutely need to be profiled. Otherwise, you will get a very, very bad color cast. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, no holds bar. I like to do that. And just tell it like it is. So far, if something happens, I'll remove it. And I will go back to my regular cartridges. Again, like I said, do I recommend that for everybody? Of course not. Of course not. If you're already currently doing this, get your cartridges from Rick Johnson. That's it. He's doing all the hard work for you. I don't want to do that. If I need cartridges, I'll get them from him too. It just saves me a ton of time, effort, and aggravation and mess. He's doing all of that for us for $60 for a full set. It comes with the clips and the correct plugs for them. So you cannot lose. And if you have empties that you need him to process for you, you can send him those and he will gladly do that for you at a cost. All right, that is it for now. Thank you so much. Hang in there. We'll continue doing this, hopefully, as long as I can come up with new subjects, something that I may not have discussed already, although everything's pretty much already discussed. So anyway, for you guys who are struggling with double profiling, with print settings, Qimage Ultimate takes care of that. I am not an expert at every intricacy of Qimage Ultimate. That's what Mike Cheney is for, okay? So if I do a demonstration and I mess up and it looks like it's Qimage's fault, no, it's my fault, okay? Keep that in mind. After the storm in Florida, everything is recovered. Right now, the server for Qimage Ultimate is turned off. So is the one for Qimage One. And so once the storm passes and everybody restores their power and all of that good stuff, and they get everything reestablished, we're going to invite both of them to come on board here for the live streams and then present us with all of the features coming from the horse's mouths themselves, not me, not Joe. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.